Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming for my presentation. I hope you have a good lunch and you don't wait too long in the queues. I'm aware that this is not a popular timing for presentation because everybody after lunch needs a break. So I hope that I will be interesting just enough that you don't fall to sleep. I'm Dragan Jelčić. I came from Zagreb, Croatia. I'm working with computer infrastructure for the last 28 years. And I'm most of the time working with my customer in the infrastructure area, in a server infrastructure up to the level of SQL Exchange or some services. So from basis discussing about how the server room should be built to deploying server, performance optimization, monitoring, backupping, restoring, disaster recovery plans, stuff like that. I would encourage you to ask me questions during my presentation. Don't wait for question and Q&A session at the end. If I don't explain something or you want more details, just ask immediately. If I don't see you, since there's lots of you, just be allowed. It's okay. So today, I will speak about disaster recovery and Hyper-V as one of the tools among lots of tools which you could utilize in disaster recovery plans, scenarios, and procedures. First, we should talk about what is disaster. After that, we will talk about plans, how to continue our business or how to continue providing services after disaster is happened. What is disaster is very wide area. Sometimes shift delete is a disaster if you don't have backup. So, and sometimes if you plan carefully your system, you could lose complete data center and says, so what? And it is not considering as a disaster. Of course, stories about disaster recovery is like with insurance. You are paying and you are praying to God not to use it. That's the real life. So, like with car insurance, you want to pay as less as possible just to be legal, because you truly believe that you won't need it anymore. So it is important not to overdo disaster recovery systems, scenarios, and stuff like that, because in 99% of the time, all investment in disaster recovery will be thrown away after a few years because you don't use it, except for a training or stuff like that. So any combination that you use disaster recovery system together, for example, with a testing system, is perfect, because your return of investment will be significantly higher than if you have disaster recovery which is stands somewhere and waiting for disaster. When we are talking about disaster recovery, the important stuff is a plan. What to do if disaster happens. During my student age, I play lots of card games, not poker, just local Croatian card games. Doesn't matter, but at that period, I learned that bad plan is much, much better than no plan at all. And it is true also in lots of living area, so it is true for disaster recovery. When you are designing disaster recovery plan and procedures, you got to be focused on services that your information system providing to users, to customers, to whatever. Service is a king. And you should design your step around the service and acceptable downtime for service, which is not same for each businesses and not same for each services. Unfortunately, today, with lots of mobile devices, email is begun to be business critical application, and people are very nervous if email system is down for a few hours. But basically, if you train your staff, no problem. You need to have few hours to do it. There is no such a disaster recovery scenario, except in rare cases, that everything will happen automatically, because it is too expensive. That's the reason. It is not technology issue. So, depending on the job and service, for example, if you have a small shoe shop for expensive shoes, and you have disaster, for example, no electricity in a shop, no problem. Just pen and pencil will be enough for these 6 pairs of shoes that you sell, and after, when electricity came back, you power on computer and write it down. No special procedure. But the lady which is working in a shoe shop should be trained what she's got to write down to successfully recover financial application on a cash machine. So everybody needs disaster recovery plan. On the other hand, sometimes you will need some geo-replicated clusters around different areas, even on a different continent. It is necessary, and it is hard, to find a really right balance between downtime in a case of disaster, between quantity of lost informations and investment in a system. I will show you a few graphs later. But basically, if we are speaking about disaster recovery, first step is always backup restore procedure, which should be designed with acceptable data loss in a case of disaster. There is no such a system that you would lose nothing in a case of disaster. Even if you have cluster, for example, for a database, shift delete from some database admin will lose some transactions. The highest backup rate that I have at my customers, it is in biggest Croatian bookkeeping company, and they backing up 600 gigabyte database every 5 minutes. But they are prepared to lose 3, 2, or 4 minutes of transactions, and they have a good backup for transactions because each player have his own ticket, which is backup. Also, for example, if you take example of electricity company, they could lose complete information systems, but the counters at the homes are still counting. So they could hire some students, walk around, read the data from the counters, and continue to billing. It is first necessary to develop disaster recovery plans for each part of the information system. After that, design plan on top for each component. Only written plans are not sufficient. I have experience in these last 20 and more years that, for example, financial institutions are mandatory to have disaster recovery plans, but they have never tested. So, stories like that. I have another funny story. One company have diesel generator for electricity, but diesel generator was put on the roof of a building on the 5th floor. And they have nice procedure to test this generator every week for 5 minutes. But people were lazy to pick up diesel fuel up to the 5th floor. And once, when electricity really went out for a longer period of time that batteries could do, they design batteries for some 20 minutes, generator stands without fuel, and they have disaster. So there is a lot of small steps, and these plans should be designed and revised really slowly and with a great caution to smaller details. It is very nice if you could check all complete procedure of a disaster recovery. Sometimes it is not possible, but it will be nice. And also, it is a good idea when you deploy something new in your system, new server, new service, whatever, to go to backup restore and disaster recovery procedures before you put that into the production. And the good thing for us as IT engineers is that disaster recovery story is an ongoing process, which should be evaluated and changed not in daily, but at least at quarterly basis. So there is a lot of job in disaster recovery for engineers, always. So, how story will go? This graph shows you how much data could you lose or how much downtime could you accept in a case of disaster, and how much you got to invest in a system. And it depends on a business and a service, and you should try to find this middle point where you lose acceptable amount of data, or you don't lose data but you have acceptable downtime, and then money which is invested and the damage in a business. So you got to try optimum per each service that you provide. For example, for an email system, if somebody sends you mail and your mail server is down, first mail server will try to resend this mail for 4 days. If it is emergency mail with exclamation mark, this mail will be tried to resend to your server for 48 hours. So, if we are speaking about simple mail transfer protocol, if somebody says something in a minute, he is a crazy one. This is not that type of protocol and communication. The other stuff is client access server, which is POP, IMAP, or Exchange, or whatever. Clients, when they lose connectivity, they are pretty nervous. So, you got always to consider all the stuff and try to find optimum, not to spend too much money and provide all resources back in a reasonable time, which is sometimes a week, really. So, implementing a good backup restore system, which is the first step in disaster recovery, require careful plannings. Each of technology approach has his advantages and disadvantages. Each software that you use. For example, you could back up a Windows server with Windows Server Backup application, which is part of a server. And the good stuff is, it is easy to restore a machine. Bad stuff, you always have only a full backup of everything. But today, if you have 50 gigabytes of data and you use as a backup medium SATA drive of 3 terabytes, it is the best approach in the world and the cheapest approach in the world, and you could make some individual restores manually. If you want some self-service for a restore operations and stuff like that, then you will use something better, for example, Data Protection Manager or some third-party vendor softwares like Backup Exec from Symantec or whatever. The most important decision when you're doing this stuff is how much you will lose, how much you are ready to lose. For example, if you have accounting application for salaries, for workers, in Croatia, and I don't know, I think that in Ukrainian is the same, staff workers receive salaries once per month. So, if you have disaster, in the middle of a month, for sure you have day or 2 or 3 to rebuild the system, put some data that you lose back inside manually, and recalculate salary for the next month for 2 weeks. Of course, always test. This is really important. So now, in all this bunch of procedures that you need to design, now these days Hyper-V could help a lot. Basically, Hyper-V as a part of operating system could help in 3 ways. Hyper-V could, independently of guest OS, replicate complete virtual machine among 2 or even 3 servers. This is nice technology, and the other side for replication could be yours or could be somewhere in the cloud, maybe somebody else. Also, if you know and if you have backup restore procedure, you can restore any physical server or virtual server from any platform inside Hyper-V and continue to operating. So let's go first to restore complete environment in Hyper-V. Each backup solution, including the cheapest or free Windows Server backup, have capability to restore your server on different hardware. And this is the procedure how you could restore your physical server to, for example, Hyper-V. Yes, it could be called physical to virtual migration at the end, because it is one of the ways how to do it. Important stuff when you're doing stuff like that, from technical perspective, is after you successfully restore server and you log on, you should uninstall all previous hardware-related applications, which sometimes could be a little bit tricky. For example, if you are installing HP management software, you need to delete some registry keys and stuff like that. But if you tried before disaster, it will be piece of cake in real life. So, some pro for these approaches. This is cheapest standalone way. You depend on nobody. You have minimum hardware requirement. I will show you later in explanations. And it is suitable for non-financial businesses, because in reality you need at least, if you are good trained, half an hour per Windows server to restore it per standard server. If it is something bigger, of course, you will need more time. Contrast about this solution is that you have a long recovery time, which sometimes could be measured in days. Also, usually because of savings, you will put more services on less hardware, so your performance will drop to some acceptable level. And if you are in financial businesses, you probably could not accept 3 or 4 days of a downtime sometimes. Important stuff here and in disaster recovery story is that, for example, in Croatia, if you want to buy decent 2-socket server, you need to wait for him for between 4 and 5 weeks. If you are a private company and you have money. The reason why is Croatia is so small market, that no worldwide vendors don't have any stocks of equipment in Croatia, except for the spare parts for the contracts. And if you are government, then you should calculate waiting sometimes of a 9 months. Why so? Because in Croatia, everything for government should go to public tender. And then you have a bad guy who is appealing to that tender. So they go with the second tender. And after the third tender, they could make direct order because of law regulations which it is. So when you are doing disaster recovery stuff, just considering, are you a government? Are you obligatory to go to public tenders? Add some spare time. So, one of the examples, and this is a solution which I have implemented at the most of my customers because it is a really cheapest solution. So, here I will discuss you a little bit by words about one of the companies which have 70 workplaces approximately. They are operate on 20 servers, of which 8 of them are physical servers, and all other stuff are virtualized. They have few databases, approximately 1.2 terabyte of data, and they have 2 terabyte of other files. File sharing, in this 2 terabyte is exchanged for these 70 people, and stuff like that. They make their own decisions that 48 hours is acceptable recovery time for their businesses. They are a financial institution, you could not believe. But they are a bank which is giving credits for flats for people, nothing else. They don't have cash machines, cash flow, nothing else. Just these credits for flats. So they are sending bills one a month, and they're taking the money, and that's all. So how they doing? They have one physical server with a tape drive on disaster recovery site, this disaster recovery site they buying as a co-location to one of telecom operators. To be honest, this is 2-socket server with 30 physical drives, which means 1 server and 1 drive cage. And they are putting their tapes to disaster recovery location every day. They hire City Express service, which is distributing small packages around Zagreb area. And guy from City Express each morning go to telecom provider, take all this tape, go back to this small bank, take tape and put it back. So, they are utilizing SQL log shipping for every 15 minutes because they have 100 megabit link over the site. And they are also have set up this server on disaster recovery site is a Windows server with backup software. They use Symantec, but it doesn't matter. This is more historical reasons. Also, this backup server is Hyper-V server. So they run Symantec backup exec and the tapes on a host and lots of virtual machines. They are running one virtual domain controller on top of inside virtual machines so that they could start immediate restore. Their restore procedure goes, first they take the fresh tape that they have it at the moment, catalog a tape, which is the longest part. It takes about 30-35 minutes to catalog all the data tape, and after that they start to restoring second domain controller, first database server, second database server, exchange server, and in approximately 6 hours they have all systems back with the minimum data loss in a perspective of a SQL database. And from a files perspective, they are backing up files and exchange once a day, but they are accounting that some of notebooks will survive, or they will rewrite this data later. The nice thing here is that this spare system performs pretty well even with 20 users. And this plan goes further and further. After they were hit by disaster, they will immediately order new servers, remove services, rebuild everything, and blah, blah, blah. But this first step, they are tested because they are mandatory to test it in Croatia every 6 months, since they are a financial institution. So their investment in disaster recovery is basically that server. Licenses, if you lose primary site, you don't lose licenses which you buy from software vendors. So they use same licenses for disaster recovery, and also, they are paying a link which 100 megabit intersite, it is 11 kilometers in Zagreb, it is not so expensive, and they buy new server every 3 years, renew this hardware, and this server costs about 20,000 euros with all memory, CPUs and stuff like tape drive and everything. So this is a great approach. And there is also maybe even better approach with Hyper-V and Microsoft DPM. If you utilize Service Center today, this means that you buy licenses for all Service Center family products. So you have DPM. And DPM have nice backup data replication, and it is a nice tool in disaster recovery. So you could utilize DPM for a backup on one side, replicate on the other DPM server, and transfer licenses in a case of disaster and restore complete of your environment. Of course, this approach is also important to learn technology. So if you don't have good disaster recovery, or if you want to make your disaster recovery better, play with this. Take one old server, deploy Hyper-V, and restore your systems inside virtual machine to learn how this stuff is working. And if you don't want to spend money, you go to next approach, which is similar, but you utilize Windows Azure for application. And the most important thing about Windows Azure is that replication traffic inside Azure is free of charge. So updating your virtual machines inside Windows Azure is free. Since your virtual machines are not working, CPU power is free. The only thing that you are paying is space on a hard drives. And of course, you need to test the system. Sometimes then you will pay traffic which is go from Azure back to your locations. So, replicate virtual machines to Windows Azure will work as the cheapest way to start. Less than $100 you need per month for a start to play with Windows Azure in disaster recovery or in any other scenario. There is no server hardware requirements, but you need to have internet connection to access Azure. So, it is suitable for all types of businesses because performance depends only on the amount of money that you are willing to pay inside Windows Azure. If you want more power, buy more power, no problem. And you could play with that power, so if you don't have real disaster, you are paying a minimum amount for CPU. And after that, okay, we were hit by disaster, we start the backup system, it works, not enough performance, please add 25 more CPUs, enter. And since Microsoft data centers are so big, there is enough resources statistically that we could utilize almost immediately. Of course, like everything, bad and good. Bad thing here is that you have, in a case of significant quantity of data, you need fast internet, which could be expensive, depending on the country. Monthly payments, which could be significantly higher after you were hit by disaster, because you need performance, and performance is not cheap. To be honest with you, I studied these prices in cloud vendors, and typically the model goes like this. 1 year, I will pay for hardware and software. 1 year, I will pay for electricity, for a room and stuff like that, and 1 year is a profit. And after 3 years, cycle starts from the beginning. So, if you need more than 1 or 2 servers, cloud is more expensive than your own investment in that. Especially if you are a little bigger company with the 2 locations. If you have your own 2 locations, you could create your private cloud with technologies that you know, and at the end, after some years, be in a plus or spend less money than if you are buying cloud services. But if you are small, or if you are big but you need only 1 critical service, cloud is the right way to go. For startup companies, smaller companies, and for companies which don't have significant amount of important services. Also, there are some legal issues with the cloud. I don't know how is in Ukraine, but in Croatia, personal data could not be moved from Croatia without special permission of Croatian Agency for Protecting Personal Data. For example, in Croatia, Tele2, Swedish mobile operator, came to provide third network, and they have a business plan that they will have billing in Sweden, since we are a really small market. And then, according to Croatian's law, it wasn't possible, so they should buy a new billing licenses and build a billing system, and they were, because of that, because billing applications in telecoms are not cheapest one, first 2 years they were above something near the zero in their businesses because of that regulations in Croatia. So consider some legal regulations if you are moving other users' data. Windows Azure is a really great thing, and it is a little bit more user-friendly than, for example, Amazon Cloud. Especially for us, people from Microsoft environment, because everything we know about Hyper-V, about virtual machines, about moving them, cloning, whatever, is same, because it is a same platform. It is the same technology. Also, there is a lot of ways how to build combination of clouds. And of course, today with standard Windows Server, you could encrypt complete communication and all data which are stored in Azure. At my opinion, the most important stuff in Azure is that all of your data lies minimally at 3 physical hard drives. And the third drive is replicated in a second data center. You buy virtual machine in Amsterdam data center. 2 physical drives or 2 arrays, or how storage is built, doesn't matter, are in Amsterdam, and there is one best effort, not synchronous, best effort replica of that in Dublin. So security, physical security of data, I don't know about hackers and stuff and reading the data, but mechanical security of the data are on the greatest level that is acceptable. And There is a lot of ways how to configure your system, but I put it on a slide some, in my opinion, some important characteristic of Azure, but two more important is, when your machine is off, you don't pay it. When you run it, you are paying per minute, not per hour or a day or stuff like that, like on other vendors. And only network traffic from Azure is paid. Traffic to Azure is free of charge. So there are lots of certificates, license mobilities, coverage, blah, 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 but this is it. Now, your cloud. Replicate virtual machines from primary to disaster recovery site. The best solution. You don't depend on any company, on any contract. Everything is in-house. Okay, I'm aware that this is the most expensive way to start building your disaster recovery solution. And of course, Hyper-V and the replicating virtual machines is not for all services. Usually, if you have these two sites and you have a budget to build your disaster recovery system, you won't replicate SQL or Exchange servers. You will install two SQLs and utilize database mirrors. You will probably install two Exchange servers. Unfortunately, you should buy Enterprise Exchange license, but if you have two sites and the need for this type of services, it shouldn't be a problem. It is not cheap, but it shouldn't be a problem. And of course, you need connectivity. Without connectivity, nothing is work. Because in the first scenario, when you restoring your complete environment inside Hyper-V, you could live without any internet connectivity to the disaster recovery site. You just create your own hard disk net, tape net, or floppy net and move data manually, and you could work. But here, it won't work without connectivity. So, how to do it? Or what's now? Unfortunately, there is no easy answer what is the best way to deploy disaster recovery. The answer is every one of us is special and needs special solution. The answer is that we need to create hybrid solution, which is always combination of few methods and few softwares and few approaches which suit the best. And the good thing for our engineers that finding appropriate solution, maintaining and making it better from day to day is a continuous never-ending process. So now we will go to Hyper-V to demo about the stuff. So let us go on my lab for you who were here yesterday. They see it. Now, first thing that I want to show is that Hyper-V replication is operating system independent. So anything which is working on Hyper-V, including Linuxes, are a good candidate to utilize replication. So, how to create replication? Pretty easy. Pick one virtual machine. I don't know which one. Let's say this one. Is it working? Maybe yes, maybe no, I don't know. XP computer. And you says, replication, where are you? Enable replication. You have wizard. You find some replica server. Simple step, what protocol to use. to compress or not data, to save network traffic? Today, answer is 100% yes, because we have usually enough CPU power that compression of data won't be a problem, and we are getting down on data connectivity. So usually this is a good way to go. If you are going outside to other sites, because here I have it on a LAN for a demo, it is good idea to have certificate-based authentication, because probably replication server is not on the same domain that is here, so you will have some problems. Now, you don't need to replicate complete virtual machine. For example, for quicker recovery, you could have operating system drive, just copy it on a disaster recovery site and replicate only a data drives to minimize a traffic over a network and to maximize recovery time. So, but this is a machine with only one drive, so we will use it like that. So now we could choose how much data we could lose. 30 seconds, 5 minutes, 15 minutes. All three numbers are extremely high, from my opinion. I would like to have here, for example, 1 hour for file sharing. But it is what it is, and if you don't have only changes are replicated among the network, so initial replication could take some time, but then if you don't have changes, these 5 minutes is not a problem, because it will be only connection. Hi, do you have something for me? No. Quick communication. So after that, maintain only the latest recovery point or create additional recovery points. What does it mean? It does mean that we not replicate only the current data. We could maintain few previous version of a machine or a hard drive on disaster recovery side. Why? Because replication is working as a checkpoints or a snapshots in VMware world. So, how it works? You create consistent snapshot of a virtual machine, copy differences to other site, and then you could apply this checkpoint or leave it for some time. So it is a good, for example, tool when somebody which don't know what is doing do some shift delete. You will have your data on a previous version on a recovery site. So that's great. So now, initial replication method. Since today's server have 30 to 100 gigabytes of data, this replication could take some significant time, and you could choose, do you want to copy this data over network, or do you want to use, for example, today's super fast USB 3 drive? Or do you want to use another virtual machine to be initial point for your file sharing drive? Also, you could schedule where all this will be happened. So now we will put it to run, and you can see that we are sending initial replica, but important stuff here is that somebody with a reason utilize this. So from 1000 megabits, replication won't use all 1000 megabits. These systems are performed, I could show you later, 100% of gigabit network, but somebody smart says, okay, this is replication, we need to spend some time for regular businesses. That's the great stuff. First time in my life that I see that they are limiting performance of computers with a good reason, with a good cause. So, when you have replicated your machine, so it is going, and you could see that this is a really fast process. Because of compression, I basically go at least 1.2 gigabits here. And if you have 10 gig network on a LAN, this is a real working story. Now, from time to time, you should test your failover. So, how to do it? You go to planned failover. You have few questions, which means after a failover, do you want that replication continues in a backside, and do you want to start replica virtual machine after failover is done? And when I press failover, it is a problem. The virtual machine is not prepared for a planned failover. Virtual machine should be turned off. So, this is not cluster. If you utilize this technology and you lose primary replica, you need to start virtual machine manually or have some script and which see is this machine down or not or really or stuff like that. So, when you create replica, you should test, is it working? So when machine is off and you see here is the same machine which is off, now you can go here and make a failover. This is also, I don't reverse machine here, but as you can see, my Ubuntu server is starting on different host. It will be few seconds. This is also a good tool for regular maintenance of operating system when you, for example, deploying a patches. Now it is here. So let's put him back. I want to show you another important stuff. Tell me. I try with this Linux with DHCP and the fixed address, and I have same address on the other side, because replication will maintain MAC address of each network card which is installed, and this part was configured. So question for you who are standing back, will IP addresses will be replaced on the Linux machines when they are flying around? The answer is no. Replication will maintain MAC address of a network cards inside virtual machine. And you could play with this behavior. Just a moment. So now I'm cancel failover. What I have here. Here and here and yes, I want to cancel. I want to start this virtual machine. Just to check how we are standing here. Okay, 46%. Let us go now. I want to show you. Okay, this one is down. So, just to check is everything is okay with our Linux. View replication health. It is okay. Close. Now, the news. Good news. with Windows Server 2012 R2, we have new feature that we could have third replica or replica often virtual machine. So you could use Hyper-V replication inside your data center and then replicate a replica not to decrease performance. So this is called extend replication. So now data will be copied from replica to extended replica for your disaster recovery purposes. And there will be no performance degradation of a primary system which is serving a client. Even you could do it over other network and stuff like this. And this wizard looks same. Absolutely the same. But here, you have only 5 and 15 minutes. There is no 30 seconds. And everything else is the same. So, how many recovery points and how much keep it, choose initial replication, next, and I won't press finish here. There is one thing which is not okay with replication wizard in a real production, but it is really easily fixed. So, if you notice that when we choose what to replicate, we don't have opportunity to choose where to replicate. Initial replication by default is going of all data of virtual machine to single folder, which is Hyper-V configuration, Hyper-V settings, which is here. Everything will go in that folder. So there is one additional step that you need to do. After you finish replication, you should go to this virtual machine which is replicating. It is here, but after replication is finished, and go with the wizard to move virtual machine storage to the locations where do you really need it. This is one additional step, but this is happening on fly and no problem. Pretty simple, pretty easy, pretty powerful tool included in all versions of Windows Server. So if you have Windows Server, you could use this technology. It works. I tried at my customers on 100 megabit networks through metro area and stuff like this, and it is enough for real servers. You don't need gigabit to replicate. Yes, now it is slowly time for questions. Yes, question was, does replication work between Hyper-V clusters? Yes. Replication don't have nothing with the cluster. It will replicate virtual machine to other virtual machine that is lying on a cluster. It is another issue, no problem. Yes, you could have, for example, configuration, Hyper-V cluster on a primary site, single machine, or a cluster on a secondary site, and utilize this replication for your data. Yes. So just that I turn slides, how we are standing, 87%, so 15 minutes on a desktop PCs for initial replication is acceptable from my opinion. So now just to finish presentation, to put question slide on a screen. So this is my email address. If you have any questions, freely contact me. I will answer, maybe not immediately because I'm old guy and I don't read emails on a mobile phone. Main reason is screen is too small and I want to read complete mail and to answer to the guy in a piece, not in a public or somewhere else. And I need to start making collection of the answers to the emails from a mobile phone. Anything behind second sentence, is missing. It is lost in a space of internet. Yeah. Yeah. So now, your questions. No questions. Okay, I hope that you are not sorry that you sit here for an hour. Thank you very much. I hope you will give me a good marks that I have opportunity. Please fill a forms, give me some marks. Maybe they will call me next year. I have a nice time in Kiev, so thank you very much once again. Bye.